Greetings, greetings, Brother Harris from the House of Harris. Welcome. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. We all starting the healing process, mentally and physically, whether we know it or not. I say mentally and physically, that's spiritual. So welcome. I'll be with you in a couple more seconds. Greetings, 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 greetings. I'm King Clifford Jefferson, descendant of Godfrey, the fifth kind of man Jew, son of folk, the ruler of Jerusalem. I'm the reincarnation of King Edgar the Peaceful, which we know here at the Third Tipping Church of England as Jesus Christ, the Vicar of Christ, or Melchizedek. It is March 20th, 2025, which is equivalent to the birth year 2975. I greet you in the name of the predecessors, successors, heirs. I greet you in the name of all those who are striving to get an understanding of what it is that we are here and called to do. This lesson today is called England and America. Know the difference. Once again, England and America. Know the difference. We know that here in the Third Tip English Church of England that we are in England. Okay, we are in fact in England. Whether you want to call it England, Britain, Great Britain, all right, United Kingdom, because all those overseas territories belong to the rim that was governing under the jurisdiction of whatever crown was under the authority at that particular time. In this case, we're talking about the English, Scottish, and Irish crown. Okay, which did not come into unification till 1707. Prior to that, the crowns of England, Ireland, and Scotland remained separate under different separate parliaments under separate monarchs. Okay, so we must comprehend that. So, without further ado, let me get started with this marvelous lecture. If there's any question, please post them in the chat line as well as leave it in your comment. Like, share, subscribe, as well as being comment. Soakage is welcome. $ Clifford Jefferson L or the Third Tip English Church of England. Greetings, 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 all those who are accompanying me here today. Newcomers, Wycliffe, Seymour, Cunningham, greetings. Solo Missions, greetings. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Glad you was able to join us today. I got a great one for you today. All right. I'm not going to hold you long, I promise. But nonetheless, the truth must get out. All right. So give me one more second. Brother Solo Mission, you said greetings, new to the channel, just wanted to make yourself known. Welcome, welcome, as well as Wycliffe, Seymour, Cunningham. Greetings to you as well as Brother Harris from the House of Harris, or uh, as well as part self if it's a female or a male. All I know is that the house is noble. So greetings to you, okay, from the noble house of Harris. Once again, I got a great one for you. This lesson is called, or this lecture is called England and America. You must know the difference, okay? You must know the difference. And as always, I bring concrete sources versus abstract sources because we know that truth is in we know a picture speaks 1,000 words, okay? Especially when that picture has language in it that you can be able to comprehend. I always say, um, time never was when we were not. The life of time become when we begin, the time will come when we will be no more. And we also say, he who writes your books set your timeline. Okay. So we're not going to let those people who are telling our story create our timeline because that's when they become the creators and we become the creation of their creation. Okay. We must understand how important these lessons are to you understanding your birthright here in North America as English heirs. When I say English heirs, I'm talking about English Anglo-Saxon Berbers. I'm specific. English Anglo-Saxon Berbers. When I say Berbers, Berbers are not Arabs. Arabs are not Moors. Once again, when I say Berbers, I'm not talking about Arabs or Moors, or Moors mixed with Arabs, or Moors or Arabs mixed with Berbers. I'm talking specifically to those who are Berber descent, okay? Exclusively and inclusively to those who are Berber descent here in what we now call North America, okay? Prior to that, this territory was known by other names, okay? By the people who were living in these territories going by other names, going by their names. So we must make the connection. And one name we're going to rule out is Americans, okay? We're going to disqualify that name, okay? United States, America, 13, all that is irrelevant to this lesson. Let's see. Let's just get them out to right real quick. They want to look at the map before you. Sorry about that. As you can see, there is a map. Here's a map of the territorial governing what we now call North America, from east to west to north to south. Okay? From east to west, from north to south. We know the east is closer to the Iberian Peninsula as well as northwest and South Africa. Okay? And we understand that on the west, it's more closer to Asia. Okay? Very, very important to understand the geographical display before you in regards to the inhabitants. Okay? He who writes your books sets your timeline. We're not over in North Africa. We're not over in the Iberian Peninsula. We're not over in what they call the United Kingdom right now. We're not over on the North Africa, the Maghreb. We're here in what we call North America. Okay, United States of America, but United States of America is not displayed on this map. Hell, the United States of America is not even in existence at this time, nor are the 13 colonies, nor all the colonies or the people who make up the colonies, okay? Nor are the Native Americans who exist at this particular time. Because when you look up the five civilized tribes, these are those who adopted what? The Anglo-Saxon customs. Let me just pull that up real quick. A lot of this is going to be new information, not new information, but the information is not going to be delivered in this manner like you receiving it today. So if you like what you're hearing, please give me a thumbs up in the chat line. Let's see. This is not a PowerPoint, okay? I'm not just showing pictures, all right? I'm using Wikipedia because Wikipedia is like baby food, all right, for babies, all right? A baby needs to be taught real slow. One second. Right here. 5 civilized tribes. Five civilized tribes. Everyone familiar should be familiar with this. The term 5 civilized tribes was applied by the United States. Remember what I said? He who writes your books sets your timeline. Okay? But time number was when we were not, because if the life of time when we begin, the time will become when we will be no more, because they can write our book right out of history. And this is what they did. Okay? This is what they did. They wrote you, the Anglo-Saxon Berbers, right out of history. Okay? The term five civilized tribes, to be civilized, meaning at one time you were not civilized, was applied by the United States government in the early federal period of the history of the United States to five major Native American nations in the Southeast. Okay, not the Southwest, the Southeast. The Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Muscogee, Creek, and Seminoles. White Americans classified them as civilized because they have adopted and attributed of the Anglo-American culture. It didn't say American, Anglo culture. It said the Anglo-American culture. That means the culture of the Anglo-Saxon civilized or five civilized tribes called the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Muscogee, and Seminole, and every other so-called civilized tribe that you so-called say, because they adopted the Anglo custom. Because if it wasn't for white Americans, they would not be civilized because they adopted the the Anglo culture. Okay, because this is what we call the Anglo sphere. So the white Americans, which is based upon the Naturalization Act, all right, in regards to their classification of citizenship, versus us who were emancipated by the 14th Amendment, which determines our citizenship, contrast to those who were citizenship subject to the immigration laws, okay? It's very important to determine what law you're using because, like I said, time it was when we were not. So we were existing at particular times. There must be laws there to substantiate our existence, okay? And we don't want to go back to a time when we were not civilized, okay? We must understand that. Hold that thought. All right, let's get it. All right, so going back to southeast, all right, five civilized tribes, southeast, not southwest, okay? Let's go back to the map. We got the map again. So southeast of the Mississippi River will be everything east, okay, west of the Mississippi, okay. Matter of fact, let me just pull this up to make it even more better for you, okay? Because a lot of you are new to the channel, so let me look up the distribution of the barbarous tribes, okay? Distribution, barbarous tribes. Right here. Okay, here we go. Share this. To be uncivilized will be considered barbarous. Would you agree? To be uncivilized would be barbarous versus being barbarous as a result of conflict. All right. When somebody's invading your land, of course, you're going to switch from a peaceful manner to a warlike manner, which one will be considered barbarous. Why? Because of you acting in a manner that's not civilized, because civilized would be peaceful versus barbarous would mean more like warlike. So we're going into the barbarous uh, barbarous tribes and the distribution at the time of what we call the Spanish conquest or what we call the Spanish colonization here and what we call North America. Okay? Distribution of the barbarous tribe east of the Mississippi River. Okay? So everything east of the West Mississippi River, which composed of what we call these civilized tribes. Okay? Which prior to them adopting the Anglo-Saxon customs, they were uncivilized, just like what we call white Americans through the Naturalization Act. Prior to that, they adopted whatever the British left here. Okay, the British were here before the colonies were here, and they were here before the states were here. Okay, and it goes back to 1492, 1491. Here we go. Distribution of the barbarous tribes east of the Mississippi of 1491. Very important that you take registry of that. All right, because now I'm gonna bring you here. Barbarian kingdoms. Barbarian kingdoms. Okay, this is very important. The barbarian kingdoms were states founded by various non-Roman, primarily Germanic people in Western Europe and North Africa following the collapse of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century. The barbarian kingdoms were the principal government in Western Europe in the early Middle Ages. The time of the barbarian kingdoms is considered to have come to an end with Charlemagne's coronation as emperor in 800. Though a handful of small Anglo-Saxon kingdoms persisted until being unified by who? Alfred the Great. Once again, Alfred the Great. We're talking about the barbarian kingdoms, okay? Not over there in what they call United Kingdom or Great Britain or the Kingdom of Great Britain. We're talking about those barbarian kingdoms going back to the Kingdom of England, because the first unification of the heptarchy was with Alfred the Great, unify all the kingdoms to one kingdom called the Kingdom of Wessex. Okay? You must understand. All right? So the barbarian kingdom were states founded by various non-Roman, primarily Germanic people in Western Europe and non-Africa, in North Africa, following the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, which we'll talk about in a second, in the 5th century. The barbarian kingdom was the principal government in Western Europe and early Middle Ages. Okay, the time of the barbarian kingdom is considered to have come to an end with Charlemagne's coronation. Very important to know who Charlemagne is in regards to understanding your place in this kingdom of Alfred the Great. Okay, and his successors being he's our predecessor. All right. The time of barbarian kingdoms is considered to have come to an end with Charlemagne's coronation as emperor in 800, though a handful of small Anglo-Saxon kingdoms persisted until being unified by who? Alfred the Great in 886. Okay, now we must understand that the Kingdom of England, the Kingdom of France, and the Kingdom of Spain were unified. Okay, they were unified when you get into the history concerning what we call the Castilian Civil War. Okay, we're going to talk about today. All right, especially when we get into history of the Kingdom of Castile. Once again, the Kingdom of Castile. Not talking about the Spanish Empire. We're talking about the Kingdom of Castile. The Spanish Empire is under the influence of the Roman Catholic Church. All right, which happened as a result of the Roman Catholic influence here in what we call North America. All right, as well as in the territorials, as well the Interior Court, i.e., the seat of government, was sitting at that particular time. Okay, so we must understand this history. Let's get to it. Let me just show you the map once again. Once again. And in this map, you're showing the territorial expansion of the Spanish Empire, the French Empire, and the British Empire. Because the Spanish and French and British colonies are extensions of the French, Spanish, and British thrones. Okay? So whatever the crown of France or the crown of Spain or the crown of England, which was before the British crown, all right, whatever colonies or overseas possession that they control, it was under the jure regalia of that monarch. We must understand that. And we're talking about history concerning Spain, France, and British here in North America, okay? And America is not even in existence, okay? The 13 colonies not even in existence, okay? The colonies are not even in existence. Can everyone agree who's here tonight today with me? Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can agree to that point that America, the 13 colonies, northern states are in existence at this particular time. Okay? Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you agree with that. I ask for participation here. Can I get a thumbs up in the chat if you can agree with what was said thus far? Noble Harris, Cunningham, Seymour Cunningham, solo mission. Everyone needs to respond. Because if you're not following along, I can't go. I can't continue on if you're not keeping up. Brother Harris, you still with us? Cunningham, while I wait for your response, I'll continue. Okay, that's very important. So we see the Spanish, French, and British possessions here in what we call North America. Once again, Spanish, French, and British possessions in what we call here in North America. We must understand that. Now we'll go here. All right, let's see. Now where I want to go here. Let's go here. We're going to connect this to Jesus' bloodline. Very important. We're going to connect this back to Jesus' bloodline because we are, in fact, of Jesus' bloodline. You just don't know who Jesus is, okay? And I'm telling you that I am the reincarnation of that vicar of Christ, Jesus Christ, because the word incarnation and the concrete means to incarnate, personify, or incorporate. So the laws that were our ancestors practiced in regards to the mysteries concerning Jesus Christ, we incorporated because we understand those mysteries, all right? And it all concerns the Christ or Christ's body of politics. Okay, it's called the body of politics. Christ's throne, the seat of the crown. That's what it's all about, which you have no understanding about. Now it's time to clear that up. All right. So we see that we're talking about not territories that we're talking about North Africa, Iberian Peninsula, Great Britain, but we know that at one particular time, all these kingdoms were unified by who? Alfred the Great. So this was a empire at this particular time. Okay, a English empire because Great Britain, United Kingdom are not in existence at this particular time. Okay, how we know it? Because we know when we did with the British monarchs only occupied the throne as a result of what happened with the House of Tudors. Okay, because they transferred the authority of the crown to the House of Tudors in 1603. Okay, very important for you to understand that. All right, we're going to talk about that as well today. All right, so let's get into it. Let's see. Let's go to the 1911 cycle. Matter of fact, let me go back to this map. A map tells you everything. As you can see on the map, you see Spain, France, and British. We're going to talk about Spain, France, and British today. Why is it not showing up on my screen? 1 second, everyone. As you can see, Spanish, French, and British overseas possessions. Okay? Spanish, French, and British overseas possessions. Now, when we talk about the British, we must bring some clarity to the British. All right? Who are these British people that we're talking about? All right? Because when you talk about the British, you get into what we call the House of Stuart with King James. Okay? They were your British monarchs. Okay? But they were sitting on the English throne because England and Scotland unified in 1707, called the Treaty of Union. Prior to that, the crowns remained separate. Okay, so the English crown, the Scottish crown, and the Irish crown all remained separate realms till 1707 with the Treaty of Union. And we know that the Scottish realms were ruled by the Scottish kings, not the English kings, but the English kings were unified with the Spanish and French kings by marriage. Okay, we're going to talk about all that today here in North America, not over there, but right here. Let's prove it. First, let's just look at the identity of the British. Okay, who are the real British people, because those who pose as the monarchs of the Scottish kings are not British monarchs, because they're not the true descendants of the British. Okay, so just look at that first, specifically pertaining to territory over here. Okay, because he who writes your books sets your timeline. You can't listen to nothing that America write. Okay, you can't listen to none of what they say or any of your so-called scholars, want to be historian, etc. Because none of y'all are in existence at this particular time. You can only go based off the history that's left by the British, all right, rulers or the monarchs. I'm talking about the ones who's sitting in these seats, all right? People change, positions don't. So we're going to hear from the ones who's sitting in the seat of power and authority, acting like gods. Because King James came to get his authority from God, the divine right of kings, okay? So if he can do it that way, then I can do it that way from the divine right of king. All right. So let's look at the British. Let's see if the Scottish king are actually descendants of the so-called British. We ain't even talking about the Spanish and the French right now here in North America. Let's talk about the British. All right. So let's look into it. British people. British people. Okay. Very important. We know that Anglo-Saxons were unified by who? Alfred the Great. Okay. Alfred the Great unified all the kingdoms of Wessex. Okay. Even at the invasion of what we call Vikings under who they said Charlemagne. Charlemagne was a Frankish king, okay, living in France. Just like you got Spanish kings, Frankish kings were subject to the Roman Catholic Church, as well as Spanish kings were subject to the Roman Catholic Church as a result of what we call alliances, compacts, treaties, etc. Okay, this you all must understand, but they are contrary to the English authority in which we rely on, called the English common law, okay, or the English provisionary statutory law, which we call provisionary statutes, okay. As I said, in the sub-Roman Britain, we're talking about sub-Roman Britain, okay, before King James even got his ass there. In sub-Roman Britain, as Anglo-Saxon culture spread across southern and eastern Britain and Gaelic through much of the north, the Demonian Britain became restricted to the Britannic-speaking inhabitants of what would later be called Wales, Cornwall, North West England, Cumbria, and southern parts of Scotland, or Strathclyde. In addition, the term was also applied to Brittany, which is not on the island of what we call on the landmass of Great Britain. It's on the what we call the northern coast of what we call the Iberian Peninsula or Spain. Okay, that's where Brittany is. Okay, we have a connection there as well. All right. So it goes on to say that in what today is called France and Bretonia in northwest Spain. But both regions have been colonized in the 5th century by Britons fleeing the Anglo-Saxon invasion. However, the term Britannia persisted as Latin name for the island. The story of Britannum claimed legendary origin as the prestigious genealogy for Britannic kings, following the Historia Regum Britannia, which popularized the pseudo history to support the claims of kings of England. You want to call it pseudo. Why? Because you're not in that story. All right? We're not calling it pseudo. Why? Because we're making a direct connection to these so called ancient ancestors. All right? Very important. Let's continue. During the Middle Ages, particularly in the Tudor period, now we go into Henry VII and Henry VIII, who overthrew the Kingdom of England by conquest, okay? As a result of what we call the War of the Roses, a conflict between the Yorks and the Lancasters, okay? All right, and that was preceded by what we call the 100-Year War, okay? I talked about that in other lessons. I can't do it today for the sake of time, so I have to continue on. During the Middle Ages, and particularly in Tudor period, the term British was used to refer to Welsh people and Cornish people. So a lot of people use the word British, but they were not actually British people, because for that you got to go into the history of Britannica or the history of Britannium, which we'll go to in a second, to see what not just the nationality of these people were, but what was their complexion. Okay. All right, so it goes on to say that the notion was supported by texts such as the Historia Regum Britannia, a pseudo-historical account of ancient British history written in the mid-12th century by Godfrey of Monmouth. The History Regum Britannia chronicles the lives of legendary kings of Britain and a narrative spanning over 2,000 years, okay? 2,000 years. What was pseudo has now become a reality, beginning with the Trojans founding the ancient British nation and continuing until the Anglo-Saxon settlement of Britain in the 7th century forced the Britons to the west. Wales and Cornwall to the north, i.e. Cumbria, Strathclyde to northern Scotland. This legendary Celtic history of Great Britain is known as the Matter of Britain. And if you know the history of Scottish kings, we know that Margaret of Wessex was called Margaret of Scotland. Margaret of Scotland was married to Malcolm III. Their daughter, Matilda of Scotland, had a daughter called Empress Matilda, who was the daughter of Henry III, the son of William the Conqueror, and she went on to marry Godfrey V, Count of Anjou, son of Fulk, ruler of Jerusalem. Okay, this is a family line. This is the ancestral root, going all the way back to when we were called the ancient Britons or the ancient Celtics or the ancient Iberians or the ancient Berbians, whatever you want to call us, we were still Berbers. How I know? I'm going to prove it. Okay, let's see. Ancestral roots, okay, of these indigenous Britannic Britons, okay, Celtics, etc. All right, going all the way back to the Byzantine area, known as the Hispanio-Visigoth, which when we were ruling on the Iberian Peninsula, okay? You must understand the story. I go deep with this. The indigenous people of the British Isles have a combination of what? Celtic, Anglo-Saxon, as well as North and Northman ancestry as a result of amalgamation. Because we know William the Conqueror invaded England in what year? 1066. He became your first English king. Prior to that, there were no English kings, because all the kings prior to 1066 were, in fact, Berber kings. Okay? They were Berber kings. Look up the year 1066 AD on the calendar, and you will not see an English reading out here. You look up the year 1066 in the English reading out here, that's when you see your first English king, okay? It goes on to say that the earlier Britannic Celtic polities in what are today England and Scotland were absorbed into Anglo-Saxon England and Gaelic Scotland by the early 11th century. The English had been unified under a single nation in 937 by King Atheltan of Wessex, the grandson of who? King Alfred the Great, the one who united the barbarian tribes, okay, after the battle of what? Brunsburg. So we must understand that as a result of the heptarchy right there, the unification of all these tribes, Anglo-Saxon Berbers, became one, right? How we know that? Because we were wise men. I'm not saying that. That's what the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica says about it, okay? You don't believe me? Just take a look at that before we go further. These are concrete sources relative to the identity of who you are over here, okay? As well as when your ancestors were in the other territories. Once again, anybody can get in touch with Sign of the TV, the Hebrew Israelites, Canaan Mars. You need to put them in touch with the English Third Temple English Church of England, because this is the only way you can get right. All right, let's look at this. The 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica. We're talking about Britannica. Britannica is short for the root word Brittany or Britain or Britain, okay? And the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica, now sitting in Chicago, originated in Edinburgh, Scotland, okay? Through the enlightenment of the Scottish people who were subject to the English crown, going back to the Plantagenet King Edward III, okay? Edward III, all right, through what we call the Scottish independence. That was 1295. Let's see what this says about the Berbers, okay? Berber, we're talking about the Berbers, brothers and sisters. The megalithic monument, matter of fact, let's go back up a little further. Berbers in the Berbers, the name under which are included the various branches of indigenous Libyan races of North Africa. Since the dawn of history, the Berbers have occupied tracts between the Mediterranean and the Sahara from Egypt to the Atlantic. The origin of the name is doubtful, though. Some believe it is to be derived from the word barbarians, employed first by the Greeks and later by the Romans. Others attribute the first use of the term to the Arabs conquerors. So many people use the name as a result of one, their actions, okay, and it was also used as a tribal name to note the different tribes, okay, note the different tribes going back to time immemorial, time out of mind, a time which you forgot. Okay. However, this may be a tribal title. Barbara or Barbarata appears in Egyptian inscriptions of 1700 to 1300 BC. Okay. So the word Barbara or Barbarata appears in Berber inscriptions because we were not Egyptians. Okay. We didn't have an Egyptian calendar or a Coptic calendar. We had our own Berber calendar. And the year in that year was not the year for us in the Berber calendar. Okay. And the Berbers were probably intimately related with the Egyptians in very, very early time because the original Egyptians were the Berbers, okay? The 22nd, 23rd dynasty, going back to Shushan, these were all Libyan West Berbers, okay? And you can trace them all the way back to 1 AD, Annos Dominios, in the year of our Lord, okay? Very important. And as it goes on to say here in the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica, it says here, we go by many names. It says the megalithic monuments of Iberia and Celtic. So they're associating the megalithic monuments of the Berbers with the Iberian Peninsula. You hear that? The megalithic monuments of Iberia and Celtic Europe have their counterparts in northern Africa. It is suggested that these were all erected by who? The same race. To be the same race, you just can't rely on your color of skin, brothers and sisters. You have to have some type of genetic ethnicity connection to these people. And we can go to Imre Ahmad Hassan and they'll tell you that those Anglo-Saxon Berbers were in fact dark-skinned. Case law says that. Now we're reading here in the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica that says that the megalithic structures that were built by these ancient people were in fact Berbers, okay? It says whether you want to call them Berbers in Libya and Africa, or Iberians in Spain, or Celts, Gauls, and Picts in France and Britain. Nonetheless, they were in fact, everyone say it at one time, Berbers. Everyone like that, give me a thumbs up in the chat line. Okay? Give me a thumbs up in the chat line. What else about the Berbers? What else about these Berbers? The Arab is a herdsman and a nomad. The Berber is an agriculturist and a townsman. The Arab has built his social structure on the Quran, which inculcates absolutism, aristocracy, theocracy. The Berber, despite his nominal Mohammedanism, he is a Democrat, which is Jimna called Wittenma, and his Qanun, which is called the unwritten code, i.e., the Magna Carta of the individual liberties as opposed to the community's good. So as we can see here, that the Berbers had a government called Witema, and Witema is known by many other names, Kure Regis. Now it's called the King's Bench. It was called the King's Council. It was called Witema. It was called, now it's called Parliament, okay? This was a name for a government that the Berbers went by wherever they went, whether it was in the Maghreb, whether it was on the Iberian Peninsula, whether it was over in Britain, or whether it was in what we call North America, okay? Because we were those barbarous tribes. We were not Arabs, we're not Moors, because we know Moors are a corruption of the mixture of Berbers and Arabs. And we know that the Arabs amalgamated, conquest over to the Maghreb, North Africa. We know North Africa, the Barbary coast, was across the water at one time back in the time of the geographical landmasses was probably part of what we call the Iberian coast, okay, where we get the Rock of Gibraltar, which the so-called Arabs invaded that as well, when it was under the control of the Byzantine, Hispanio, Visigoth, Berber tribes, okay, which we talked about that already. I ain't got time to break it down again, but you got to go back and watch my other lessons, okay? So we were, in fact, the Anglo-Saxon Berbers, because the Berbers government was called Witema, which means what? Wise counsel. Wise counsel. Not over there. And what they call United Kingdom, right here in North America. How? I'm going to prove it, brothers and sisters. I am going to prove it. Well, let's prove it. First of all, let's look at the legendary kings of Britain. Okay? See what their complexion was. Because the ones who are over there now doesn't have this complexion. Okay? So if this was a legend, they thought enough to make the legendary people to look like us. Okay? If it was legendary. Okay? And we know that they all took a form of bees. Bees goes back to bees of Venerable, also goes back to Saint Benedict of Nursia, going back to the Benedictine monasteries, known as what we call the a continental or a cosmopolitan movement, going back to who? Alfred the Great. Okay, it was called the English Benedictine Reform. Okay, so all the kings, legendary kings of Britain, okay, were dark skinned, brothers and sisters, as you can see it. Let's just get a couple of pictures of them. Albanakis. Albanactus. Ancient kings, brothers and sisters. Look at that complexion. All right. Albanakis. Let's go find someone else. Kember. Look at him. Who else? Gwendolyn. They got a picture of him? No picture here. All right, but the list goes on. They're melanated, for lack of a better term, dark-skinned ancestors that we can rely on because we have a history recorded in what we call illuminated manuscripts. Once again, illuminated manuscripts. And we know that they were over here. When we go back to this map, it says British. Okay? It says British. Let's put it up again. Got to go back to the map. I don't know what's wrong with my share screen. As you can see the map, we're talking about only British right now. We only talking about the British. We ain't even gotten to France or Spain. We're talking about British. When you taste British all the way back, it goes back to the ancient Britons. When you come all the way up to the ancient Britons, you wind up running right into who? Alfred the Great, the kings of Wessex, and those kings of Wessex were those barbarian tribes that was here all the way up till 1491 with the distribution of the barbarian tribes. Okay, the barbarian tribes were here, but then they were distributed in 1491. 1491 is when you get to the Spanish conquest. Okay, so we have to deal with that because they involve the kings and queens ruling under the French and Spanish crown, but with a little touch of the Roman Catholicism. Okay. Very, very, very important. So we already described those who claim to be British when in fact they are not British descendants, okay? Because the true British descendants are those descendants of the Anglo-Saxons who descended from those barbarous tribes known as Berbers, okay? Who had a government already in place in which those Scottish kings borrowed, okay? The colonists borrowed. The states borrowed. Why? Because it was already in place right here on this continent. Okay. Before it was called the 13 colonies. Before it was called the United States. Before it was called America, or whatever else they want to call it now. We were already here because the original British people were already here because the original British were composed of French and Spanish ancestry. Once again, the original British ancestors had progenitors that have French and Spanish ancestry. How I know it? Let's prove it. Right here in North America. Let's prove it. Let's go back to that the distribution of the barbarous tribes. Okay, we know that those 5 civilized tribes were uncivilized until they adopted the Anglo-Saxon custom and culture. Okay, as well as those founding fathers, those colonies adopted the Anglo-Saxon culture, which made them what? Civilized. I didn't say that. You can go right to the Dred Scott case, and it'll tell you that before we were enslaved in the Middle Ages, they were enslaved in the dark ages of the world, not just one area, but the dark ages of the world. The Dred Scott case tells you that. Okay? But you don't look further than what your eyes see. Okay? Because what he who writes your books set your timeline. So you stuck in time. Okay? When we came before this time. All right, very important. So we must see where we became distributed to other places other than our original home. Okay, because the new world didn't come into existence to the age of discovery, from the old world to the new world. Okay, this was not supposed to have been even discovered, but yet you had the Olmecs who preceded the Aztecs, Mayans, and the Incas, who were all uh, 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 conquered by this due to Spanish colonization. They didn't conquer the Olmecs, because the Olmecs means Old Mexico. Mexico got their independence from the Treaty of Cordoba, which they became the Mexican Empire. But prior to that, they were part of the Spanish Empire. Okay? They were part of the Spanish Empire, not over there, but right here in North America. Okay? And you know, the Spanish Empire went through a host of foreigners. The Aztecs, the Incas, the Mayans, all right, all those were foreigners. Why? Because the original inhabitants over here were called the Olmecs. They were the original founders of the what they call the flying serpent. In Egyptian, they call them the Waset, the Iron Horse, and the Iron Rock. Okay, and in Anglo-Saxon, we call it the Ren, the dragon. Okay, come on, we need to understand what's going on. Okay, now you see all of a sudden in 1491, these darn names popping up: Choctaw, Seminole, Creeks, Yamasee, Catawba. All right, you see all these Native American names, but they prior to that Native American name, this is when they became civilized. Prior to that, they were not civilized, but yet the Anglo culture was here because that was the culture to civilize people. Okay. Does that make sense to everyone that's on the channel right now? If so, please give me a thumbs up in the chat line. Okay? Please give me a thumbs up in the chat line as I move forward in my lesson. Okay, so we already disqualified that the Scottish kings call themselves the British monarchs are not in fact British monarchs, because to be British, you must go back to the original inhabitants of that area called Britain, okay, which goes back to the ancient British, which were definitely of what we call dark skin complexion. Matter of fact, I gotta pull up Imre Amahassan because it's still deal with citizenship. We know those Anglo-Saxon and those ancient Britannic kings got one thing in common. What? The color of their skin. Okay? The color of their skin. That's one thing that they all have in common. Let's see. Bear with me, everyone. Sarah. Thank you for the thumbs up, everyone. I'm giving you case law, not over case law over in Britain. I ain't giving you case law over on the Iberian Peninsula. I ain't giving you case law on in North Africa. I'm giving you case law right here in North America, establishing not just your political status, but your civil status, as well as the color and the complexions of those who have the political status as the dark-skinned Anglo-Saxon Berbers, as the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica said they was. Okay, let's look at it. And let's exclude those who came along with the colonies in the United States who came after the British Empire, okay? All right, let's exclude those right now. And this district court case, Enwei Ahmad Hassan, 1942. I am the living Messiah. I'm the revealer of those truths, those hidden secrets, okay? Enwei Ahmad Hassan. To summarize the approach which must be followed in deciding whether a particular person applying for citizenship is a white person within the meaning of the statute, as interpreted by the Supreme Court, it is necessary to determine first what particular group or racial subdivision to which the individual belongs. Y'all better listen. In practical effects, proof of this fact is a matter of what? Genealogy. Okay? Genealogy. So just because you got the color skin don't mean duty squat to them. You better prove it on record. Not saying, when I say record, I mean the public record. Okay? The public record. A individual who presents an aberration from the color of skin of the group of which he is a member, such as a light-skinned Chinese or Japanese, with that in mind, look at United States versus Wong Kim Ark, which we'll go to in a second, okay? We're going to go to a light-skinned Chinese and a light-skinned Japanese, which pretty much are classified as the same based upon their civil status, all right? As contrary to, or I mean, as opposed to what we call a dark-skinned Anglo-Saxon, okay? So it says an individual who presents an aberration from the color of their skin of a group of which he is a member, such as a light-skinned Chinese or Japanese or a dark-skinned Anglo-Saxon. Hear that, brothers and sisters? A dark-skinned Anglo-Saxon. It didn't say white-skinned Anglo-Saxon. It didn't say light-skinned Anglo-Saxon. It didn't say swarthy. It said dark-skinned Anglo-Saxon. Does not thereby acquire a different status. So the color game, they ain't playing. Okay, does not thereby acquire a different status under the act from other members of its group. So if you claim to be dark-skinned and don't know who you are based upon your national identity, because you must have a nationality, you better make sure you find it, because if you don't, then you're going to be screwed to the Immigration Act or the Naturalization Act that Wong Kim Ark was subject to, which was a light-skinned Chinese or light-skinned Japanese, whatever nationality he chose, whether it was Chinese or Japanese. Based upon that national status, he was not included in the meaning of the Naturalization Act of 1790, nor the 14th Amendment, because Donald Trump said that was exclusively for slaves of emancipated, children of emancipated slaves. Okay? So you better pay attention to what I'm saying. It goes on to say that, of course, when an individual applying for citizenship has a skin of a different color than is usual for the member of that group from which he claims to come, a strong burden of proof then rests upon him to show by the usual methods of proving genealogy that he is, in fact, a member of that group. After the individual has been traced, listen, after the individual has been traced into his group, the second question which the court must answer is whether that member of that group, whatever group he claims to be a part of, whether you're a Moorish American, whether you're a Hebrew Israelite, whether you're a Canaanite Moor, whether you're an Anglo-Saxon Berber, whether you're a Native American Indian, whether you're a naturalized citizen, whether you're a foreign citizen, it does not matter to them. You better make sure that you know, because if not, you're going to be subject to that Deportation Act, and it's coming down the pipe. And deciding the latter matter in regards to if you're being included in the Packers deal in 1790, which only dealt with free white persons. They didn't say Anglo-Saxons. They never called themselves Anglo-Saxons, let alone white-skinned Anglo-Saxons. They just said white person. They didn't give a damn about a nationality, a nation, or a country. Why? Because they had nothing they come from. All right? We must understand what's going on. After you, the ones who are on this live right now, after you have traced yourself into your group, The second question you must ask yourself is what the members of the group intended as white persons in that Congress as Congress understood it in the term of the 1790 Statutory Act when they first enacted that statute. And in deciding the latter question, the test is not how the group in question will be classified by ethnologists who have made a study of racial origin, but rather what group of people then living in 1790 with the characteristics then existing were intended by Congress to be in fact classified as white persons. Applying these principles, the court finds that the petitioner is an Arab and that Arabs are not white persons within the meaning of the act. So if you are an Arab, that also includes Moors, because Moors are a product of Arabs, okay? And we know that Berbers are not a product of Arabs or Moors because Berbers were those Anglo-Saxons, as the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica said, as well as I'm going to show you in a second, okay? So there you have it right there. There's one case to qualify you, known as what we call the common law, and common law is what? Precedent, stare decisis, okay? Stare decisis, we using that. I got case law. I got statutory law to qualify our position as well. Statutory law. These are called provisionary statutes, okay? No, that's not the term. They're called reception statutes. That's what they're called. Reception statutes. If everyone is keeping up with what I'm saying, please put a number 1 up in the chat line. Because the thumbs up is getting me confused. Give me a 1 up and number 1 in the chat line if everyone's on the same page. Okay? All right, now we're done with British. Let's go into Spain. All right, let's deal with Spain. Because we know that the distribution of the barbarous tribes, and those barbarous tribes were those tribes that were unified by who? Alfred the Great, okay? From the time of Alfred the Great all the way up to 1491, those barbarous tribes were dealing on the east side of the Mississippi River as well as on the west side of the Mississippi River. Why? Because those British Anglo-Saxon Berbers were also related to the French and Spanish Berbers, okay? Very important because the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica says that wherever you called them, they were of the same stock, okay? They were of the same stock. Let me just go back there to make sure that's what they said. The 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica. Right here. The megalithic monuments, we talk about megalithic monuments, you're talking about castles, you're talking about pyramids, you're talking about burial mounds, etc. They all had that in common. All right? They all had that in common. That's one thing that they took with them, okay? The megalithic monuments of the Iberian and Southern Europe have their counterparts in Northern Africa. And it's suggested that they were all erected by the same race, not just based upon the color of skin, but based upon their genealogy, ethnicity, okay? All right, their genetic code, okay? By whatever name they was known by. Berbers in Libya and Africa, all right? That's North Africa. We ain't talking about the Saudi Arabia, all right? We ain't talking about west of the Red Sea. All right, we're talking about North Africa. Whether you're talking about Sub-Sahara or what we call Sub-Sahara or Sahara, the desert, where they were inhabited by Berbers. Okay, so it says that they were the same race, ethnicity, genealogy. That's what I'm talking about. By whatever name you call them. Berbers in Libya and Africa, Iberians in Spain, Celts, Gauls, and Picts in France and Britain. Okay, we must understand that we are in fact the same people here. Even though we were influenced by what? In spite of a history of foreign conquest, Phoenician, Greeks, Romans, Vandals, Arabs, and French, the Berber physical type and the Berber temperament and nationality have persisted since what? The Stone Age, brothers and sisters. We have been here. We're going to remain here. You just have to remember that you are those people. Okay? Very, very important. So let's go into the Spanish conquest, right? Because apparently, all right, We lost the barbarous identity, which was a tribal name, in 1491. Okay, we know in 1491 they had the Spanish conquest, and the Spanish conquest overthrew the indigenous people over here, not including the Native American Indians. We're talking about the Aztecs, the Mayans, and the Incas. Okay, the original people that preceded them was the Olmecs, and the Olmecs were the old Mexicans. Okay, very, very important to understand that. All right. And they had a lot in common with those ancient Egyptians. Okay. Yes, the Olmecs, the mound builders. Okay. And they wasn't running around kicking rubber balls. Okay. You must understand that. Let's get to it. Let's see. Spanish conquest. Now we talked about British. That's still us. Now we got to find out where us got corrupted. Okay, so we got to go to the progenitors of the corruption. All right, and this is the Roman Catholics dealing with the Roman Catholic influence here in what we call North America, and that's through what we call the Spanish colonization of America into what they call the New World. Okay, the New World. Let's look at it. The Spanish colonization of America began in 1493 on the Caribbean island of Hispaniola, now Haiti in the Dominican Republic. After the initial 1492 voyage, Genesee mariner Christopher Columbus, under license from who? Queen Isabella of Castile. All right, once again, Queen Isabella of Castile. These overseas territories, i.e., colonies of the Spanish Empire, were under the jurisdiction of the Crown of Castile until the last territory was lost in 1898. We're talking about the Spanish Empire was under the jurisdiction of the Crown of Castile. It didn't say the Crown of Castile was under the jurisdiction of the Spanish Empire. It said the Spanish Empire was under the jurisdiction of the Crown of Castile. Okay? And the Crown of Castile was overthrown by the Spanish Empire as a result of Roman Catholic influence. We can go back to the Castilian Civil War, which we're going to talk about in a second. Okay? You must understand the facts. Talking about right here. All right? Right here. Imperial expansion. The expansion of Spain territory took place under Catholic monarchs Isabella I of Castile and her husband Ferdinand II of Aragon, whose marriage marked the beginning of a Spanish power beyond the Iberian Peninsula. They pursued a policy of joint rule of their kingdoms and created the initial stage of a single Spanish monarchy completed under the 18th century Bourbon monarch. Once again, Isabella of Castile and her husband Ferdinand II of Aragon, whose marriage marked the beginning of a Spanish power beyond the Iberian Peninsula. Okay, so it started over there, but it extended over here when Spain and France already had influence over here. We know this. We're going to prove this. Okay, so this was just a Roman Catholic conquest over those who were not Roman Catholic because Christianity was already in play, or our type of Christianity, I might add, because if we go back to the English Reformation, it's a result of the Gregorian mission caused by Pope Gregory I and Augustine of Canterbury to convert us to Roman Catholic Christianity. Okay, you must understand the timeline. So in 1492, Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand III, who were married, expanded their territory beyond the Iberian Peninsula. All right, and we know the Iberian Peninsula, according to the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica, they say that the indigenous people there were what? Berbers. Okay, and we know the Berbers were, according to their government, was the Anglo-Saxons, and they were in fact dark-skinned, as Enway Ahmad has said in that case law from the district court. Okay, very important. Let's get it. All right. All right. So the Spanish Empire, the Spanish conquest was under Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand II of Aragon. This is very, very important because it was remain under the jurisdiction of what? The Kingdom of Castile. So let's look at the Spanish Empire. Okay, let's look at the Spanish Empire. Very important. The Spanish Empire, or sometimes referred to Hispanic monarchy or the Catholic monarchy, was a colonial empire that existed between 1492 and 1976. Now, we already know that the distribution of the barbarous tribes or the barbarian tribes in 1491 happened at this time. And this is when the Native American names start to come about. We know that prior to that, those ancient Berber tribes, barbarian tribes, were unified in 1886 by Alfred the Great, okay, the King of Wessex, okay. Very important to understand that, because if you don't understand the history, then when you read about the Spanish Empire, then that story goes out the window, okay. We must understand that. The Spanish Empire was from 1492 to 1976, but they were subject to the kingdom of Castile. Okay? The kingdom of Castile, which was under Sancho II and Ferdinand III. Once again, Sancho II and Ferdinand III controlled the kingdom of Castile, not including the Spanish Empire influenced by Roman Catholicism. Okay? Very, very important. Who are the members of the Spanish Empire? This is very, very important to connect the dots and look at the territory that we're talking about. Look at the map, y'all. Look at the map. Look at all the houses, the members: Transamora, Habsburg, Capitan, Bourbon, House of Valios, Burgundy, House of Capet, House of Bonaparte, House of Savoy were all members of the Spanish Empire through the Spanish conquest over here in North America, because we were here prior to the Spanish conquest here in North America. Why? Because we have statutory law to prove it. Okay? We have the Constitution to prove it. We have the government seat of England here to prove it. In 1702, when it was being ruled by Scottish monarch, i.e., Queen Anne. Okay? Very, very important to understand what it is that I'm bringing to you and to be accepted as members, as a part of our empire. Okay? Because if you are, then you do have an estate here in my possession. Okay? It's called Crown Land, brothers and sisters. So the Transamora, Habsburg, Capitan dynasty, Bourbon, House of Valios Burgundy, House of Capet, House of Bonaparte, House of Savoy, these are all members of the Spanish Empire. These are Frankish houses, I might add. Frankish houses are all part of the Spanish Empire under the influence of who? Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand of Aragon. Okay? To everyone is catching up to that, if everyone on key with that, you must not forget that. Okay. All right. So as we can see, that the Spanish Empire was composed of houses of Spanish and French influence under Roman Catholicism. Okay? Very important. The Spanish Empire, 1491. Prior to that, we didn't have that influence over here. We were all family, okay? Not over there on the Iberian Peninsula, not over there in the United Kingdom, not over there in North Africa. We're talking about right here. Not saying that we were not over there as well, because that's where our extended family, but we had a universal, continental, cosmopolitan movement, okay? It was an empire. I'm not saying that. Case law says that, which I'm going to go to. Lotham versus Lotham. We'll go to in a second. Let's see. So remember these houses: Transamora, Habsburg, Capitan, Bourbons, House of Valios and Burgundy, House of Capet, House of Bonaparte, House of Savoy, House of Capet, and House of Bonaparte, House of Savoy. All these houses stem as member houses of the Spanish Empire under the control of what? Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand II of Aragon through the Spanish colonization where? In North America, okay? In North America. I didn't say that. That's what you just read. All right? We're talking about the Spanish Empire and the colonization here in North America, as well as what they colonized over there and on the Iberian Peninsula. Okay? Very important. Let's get to it. So with that in mind, let's see that takes us here. Okay, that's going to take us right here. Let's see. The Castilian Civil War. Okay? The Castilian Civil War. All right? You got the 100-Year War, you got the Castilian Civil War. The 100-Year War was a war that started as a result of Edward III's claim to the French throne. Okay? Once again, on his claim to the French throne, and his descendants were in conflict with Roman Catholic, French, and Spanish monarchs. Okay? Very important. This is where it gets interesting for those who don't know history. Okay? Once again, we're talking about Edward III, a Plantagenet king here in North America. Right? He's descendant of Edward II. He's descendant of Edward I. Edward I is descendant of Henry III. Henry III is descendant of John. I mean, part itself. Yeah, Henry III is the son of Henry II. Henry II had three sons: John, Richard I, and which is called Richard Lionheart, or where the concept of Memorial come from, and Henry III. They were all sons from Henry II, the son of Godfrey, the fifth kind of Jew, son of folk, ruler of Jerusalem, where my surname come from. Godfrey Jefferson, son of Godfrey, or descend down from the Godfrey's clan, i.e. Plantagenet crown. Okay? Very important. So since we're talking about Spanish, all right? Since we talk about Spanish conquest, we're talking about the Spanish empires, and it said that the Spanish Empire was subject to the Kingdom of Castile. Now, the Kingdom of Castile and the Spanish Empire are two different under two different jurisdictions. We must understand that. Let's see this. Let's see why. Let's see. Let's go here. I didn't pull it up. I didn't pull it up. So we looked at the Spanish Empire. Make sure you keep your eye on those members. And let's look at the members of the Kingdom of Castile. Such the Spanish Empire was subject to the jurisdiction of the Kingdom of Castile. So the question becomes, when did it fall out of the jurisdiction of the Kingdom of Castile? That's what we should be asking ourselves as scholars. Okay? Kingdom of Castile. Let's look at it. How many know anybody out there that teach like this? How many? None of the teachers you find on YouTube breaks it down this clear. The Kingdom of Castile. All right? Now, the Spanish Empire was subject to the jurisdiction of the Kingdom of Castile. I didn't see it say that. They said that. And the Kingdom of Castile preceded the Spanish Empire. The Spanish Empire was started in 1492. Okay? At the age of discovery. So they coming into the kingdom that was already here, which was called the Kingdom of Castile, because the Kingdom of Castile governed the territories that was subject to the crown of Castile. Okay? Very, very important for you to understand that. So when we look at the Kingdom of Castile and the minors of the Kingdom of Castile, you won't see the same monarchs. Okay? The kings of Castile were Sancho II and Ferdinand III. Okay? Sancho II and Ferdinand III are the kings of Castile. Okay? Very, very important for us to understand that. All right? Because with this, it brings us to what we call the Castilian War, which was part of what we call the 100-Year War. Okay, once again, so the Castilian Civil War was a part of the 100-Year War, which was a conflict that involved Spain with a conflict that was already brewing with England and France. Okay, very important for you to understand that. And this was all resulted in what we call marriages. Okay, all right, very, very, very important. All right, so we look at the what we call the Kingdom of Castile. It started from 1065 with Sancho II and Ferdinand III. Okay, those are very important. We're not talking about the Spanish Empire. Okay, we're not talking about that. And we know the Spanish Empire also was composed of French kings as well. All right, the Capitan, the House of Balios, the House of Burgundy. Okay, these were French and Spanish houses aligned together in conflict with French and Spanish houses that were not influenced by Roman Catholicism. Okay, that were all subject to the jurisdiction of those predecessors or the ones who set the mark, which was the kings of England. Okay, they set the standards, the king of England. Very important for you to understand that. All right, for you to understand that, let's go ahead to the Castilian Civil Wars. Castilian Civil War. Now, watch the connection that no one else can make. I hope y'all got a good memory. The Castilian Civil War was a war of succession, not over the French crown, not over the English crown. There was already a conflict brewing with the 100-Year War over the French crown of Edward III, who was already in control of the English crown. Okay, this is a fight over the crown of Castile. Okay, the Spanish crown we're talking about. All right, and it's called the Castilian Civil War, a war of succession over the crown of Castile that lasted from 1351 to 1369. After this, you get the Anglo and Dutch War. When you say Anglo and Dutch War, you go into what we call Netherlands. All right, Netherlands. Netherlands are the Dutch, and the Anglo are talking about what? The United Kingdom or Great Britain, or what they call the Kingdom of Great Britain. Not the Kingdom of England, because prior to 1707, they remained separate. Okay? Very important. And we know at this time, the kingdoms are separate. England and France is aligned by way of marriages between Edward III and Eleanor of Castile. I mean, pardon, so Henry II, son of Godfrey V, Count of Anjou, and Eleanor of Aquitaine, a French queen. That aligned the French houses. Then we got Edward I, who received an inheritance in the French throne, which we're going to talk about in a second, as well as his son Edward III married to Eleanor. Not what's it? Eleanor. It was Edward I married to Eleanor of Castile. We're going to talk about it. I don't want to be guessing, so we're going to talk about it now. It says the Castilian Civil War was a war of succession over the crown of Castile that lasted from 1351 to 1369. The conflict started after the death of Alfonso XI of Castile in March 1350. It became part of a larger conflict then raging between the Kingdom of England and the Kingdom of France called the 100-Year War. So there was already a conflict brewing called the Kingdom of England, between the Kingdom of England and the Kingdom of France. Okay, there was already a war brewing. That goes back into what we call the 100-Year War. Okay, and that descended down from what we call the Capitan and Plantagenet wars. Okay, the 100-Year War was a war between the Plantagenet crown and the Capitan dynasty, which we know were all part of the Spanish Empire. They were all part of the Spanish Empire. So we see that the kingdom, the war of succession for the crown of Castile was another conflict that became part of a larger conflict that was already then raging between the Kingdom of England and the Kingdom of France called the 100-Year War. It was fought primarily in Castile. Okay. not in England, but in Castile, and his coastal waters between the local and allied forces of the reigning King Peter of Castile and his illegitimate brother Henry from the House of Chantamora over the right of what? The Spanish crown. Y'all better listen. The right of the Spanish crown. Let's look at the belligerents, okay? Forces. Henry of Chantamora, the Kingdom of France, and the Crown of Aragon versus Peter of Castile, the Kingdom of England, the Kingdom of Norway, the Kingdom of Majorca, Emirates Granada, Duchess of Aquitaine, and other elite mercenaries. Okay, this is very, very, very important because the Henry of House of Chamorro was a part of the Spanish Empire. The Spanish Empire. Now just go ahead and just prove it. Spanish Empire. Right here. House of Chantamora. So they go all the way back to the Castilian Civil War, which became a part of an ongoing conflict between France and England. Okay, and we know Spain and France are on the same landmass. Okay, Spain and France are on the same landmass. We must understand that. So back to the Castilian Civil War. The Castilian Civil War were between the belligerents of the Spanish Empire member houses, which was Henry of Chansamora, okay, and Peter of Castile, one of the original kings of Castile. All right, very important. Called the Castilian Civil War, a part of the 100-Year War that was already raging between the Kingdom of England and the Kingdom of France. And we know that the Spanish Empire had some influence with Roman Catholic France and Roman Catholic Spanish, okay, which were made up of the Spanish Empire under control of Queen Isabella of Castile. If everyone understands that, please give me or put a number 2 in the chat line. Put a number 2 in the chat line if you understand that. All right. So the commanders and leaders of the Castilian Civil War were who? Henry and Chantamora, a member of the Spanish Empire, okay, and Peter of Castile and Edward the Black. The only thing we need to point out here is that we know in the movie Martin Lawrence was known as the Black Prince, okay, and that movie The Black Knight, okay, and he went to Normandy, and Normandy was going through what they call the Black Plague, okay. They was going through a Black Plague, pretty much was going around here in North America at the time of what we call the time when we had infections and diseases running rampant here. Okay, all right. Very important to understand that there is some similarity there. Right. So when as we see the Castilian Civil War, the commanders and leaders was Peter of Castile and Edward the Black Prince, which were all sons of who? Edward the Third of the Plantagenet crown. Edward the Third of the Plantagenet crown. Okay, these were the kings of England outlined with the kings of Castile. Who was Peter of Castile? Let's just prove it. Peter of Castile. Peter of Castile, he wasn't the son of Edward III. He was married to Edward III's daughter. Her name was Joanne of England. Okay, very important. Peter of Castile was married to his contemporary Joanne, the second and favorite daughter of King Edward III of England. However, their way to Castile, she and her retinue traveled through cities infested with the Black Death, ignoring townspeople who had warned them not to enter their settlement. So Edward III's daughter, Joanne of England, married who? Peter of Castile. Okay, a Castilian. Go figure. Okay, they were family. All right, very, very, very important. Peter of Castile married Edward III's daughter, Joanne of Castile. Edward the Black Prince was also on the side of Peter of Castile. All right, who was Edward of Woodstock, the Black Prince? How many of you knew this? Edward the Black Prince. Edward of Woodstock, latterly known as the Black Prince was the eldest son and heir apparent of King Edward III of England. He died before his father, and so his son Richard II succeeded to the throne. Instead, Edward nevertheless earned distinction as one of the most successful English commanders during the 100-Year War, which was also a part of what? The Castilian Civil War, okay? But it didn't take place in England. It took place on the Spanish continent, okay? On the continent of Spain. Okay, so we see that Edward the Black Prince, Peter of Castile, were warned against the House of Trans-Zamora, which was the member house of what we call the Spanish Empire, which is now linked to what? The Kings of Castile, okay? Because the Spanish Empire was subject to the jurisdiction of the Kings of Castile, i.e. Sancho II and Ferdinand III, okay? How we know that? Because let's prove it. Let's prove it. Kings of Castile. Kingdom of Castile. Let's prove it. That they are in fact family. French and Spanish family. All Berbers. Okay? All Berbers. You don't see the Spanish Empire, right? But you see the Kingdom of Castile. Religion, Judaism and Islamism is influence on the Iberian Peninsula under those Sicilian kings. Okay? Sancho II and Ferdinand III. From 1217 to 1230, Ferdinand III was ruling. Who was Ferdinand III? Let's see. Early life. As the son of Alfonso IX of Leon, his second wife, Berengaria of Castile, Ferdinand descended from Alfonso VII of Leon de Castile on both sides. His paternal grandmother was Ferdinand II of Leon, and maternal grandmother was Sancho III of Castile. Where the sons of Alfonso VIII, one second, hold that thought. All right. Show you the connection. As son of Alfonso the Ninth of Leon and his second wife, Regaria of Castile, Ferdinand the Third descended from Alfonso the Seventh of Leon and Castile on both sides. His paternal grandmother was paternal grandfather was Ferdinand II of Leon, and maternal great grandfather was Sancho III of Castile, where the sons of Alfonso VII, between whom his kingdom were divided. Ferdinand had other royal ancestors from his paternal grandmother, Urraca of Portugal, and his maternal grandmother, Eleanor of England. Did y'all hear that? His grandmother, Eleanor of England, daughter of Henry II of England, and Eleanor of Aquitaine. As I said, French. She was French, okay? She was married to Godfrey the Fifth Calamandu, son, Henry II, where my surname comes down, Godfrey. You can't get no better than that, brothers and sisters. You can't get no better than that. I just showed you that the English, French, and Spanish were all family before Roman Catholic influence. That shit started way back in the Gregorian mission when Pope Gregory I tried to influence us to their Christianity. Okay? So we must understand what's going on because there's a paper trail that they left. Okay? They left a paper trail. How we know it? Let's look at the paper trail. Spanish Empire. When you look at all these houses, we understand the Castilian Civil War, right? The Castilian Civil War originated with the House of Trans-Zamora, and the House of Trans-Zamora is a member house of the Spanish Empire, okay? Of the Spanish Empire. This is very important to understand that. When we know that the Kingdom of Castile was aligned with the Kingdom of England, all right? Because we know the Kingdom of Castile through Sancho II and Ferdinand III, his fraternal grandmother was who? Eleanor of England, the wife of Henry II, the son of Godfrey the Fifth Catamount Jew, son of Folk, ruler of Jerusalem. You can't break it down no better than that, brothers and sisters. I know my history because I am who I say I am. Okay? So let's look at the clue they left behind. So if the Spanish Empire, I do get the flag. It's a white flag with X in it, with ridges on it, all right? And we see the territory extension that it encompasses, all right? So that will be, if we were talking about North America, that will be considered New Spain, okay? And then we got New France. I'm screaming, my bad. I'm all out. I'm passionate about this, brothers and sisters. Okay, so we see this flag, key. All right. So now we got to look at all the relations between Spain and the Dutch. Okay, all the relations between Spain and the Dutch, because it's very important to connect Spain and the Dutch to the Kingdom of England, which we know was right here in New Jersey. Okay, the crown was here in New Jersey in 1702 by Queen Anne under the Scottish Queen. It was called His Majesty's Council. The seat of government was right here. But yet, before the seat of government was established, it went through a series of transitions of the government as a result of what we call the Anglo and Dutch Wars. Between the Anglo, meaning those who were sitting over the English throne, would be those of the Great Britain, which be the Scottish monarchs and the House of Tudors. Once again, the Scottish monarchs and the House of Tudors. Because prior to that, you had the War of the Roses, you had the 100-Year War, which was part of the Castilian Civil War, what we just got finished talking about. Okay? So we see the Spanish Empire has its flag. We also see this flag with the Spanish Netherlands. Let's look at it here. Spanish Netherlands. Okay? Spanish Netherlands. You see the flag again. Spanish Netherlands. The name Flanders was used as Paros Prototo was the Habsburg Netherlands ruled by the Spanish branches of the Habsburg from 1556 to 1714. Look at the time era, brothers. It's the 16th century, okay? The Spanish Netherlands. We know the Spanish Empire was before that, 1492, okay? And they all bear the same flag, but they have no connection to the kings of Castile, who are unified with the kings of England and the kings of France because they were all married into the family, okay? Very important. So you got Spanish Netherlands, bearing the same flag. You also have what we call Habsburg Spain. Okay? Habsburg Spain. Habsburg Spain. 1516 to 1700. Okay? This is modern. Coffee cold. All right? Habsburg Spain. Bearing the same flag, brothers and sisters. The same flag. The age of expansion under who? Let's see. Let's see who we can blame who we can blame this. Good eye. The marriage of Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand III of Aragon in 1469 united the two main crowns, Castile and Aragon, which eventually led to the de facto unification of Spain after a culmination of the Reconquistador when the Iberian Berbers, known as those Castilian Berbers, was trying to take the land back from those Arabs who invaded the land, which was composed of Berbers, as the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica said, as well as the Enray Amaha said, because according to them, the Anglo-Saxons were dark-skinned, okay, versus the Arabs. The Arabs were light-skinned, okay, like the Chinese and Japanese, which we're going to go back to in a little bit, okay? So we see that the Habsburg Spain was also part of Isabella in front of that expansion of Roman Catholic into our jurisdiction. Okay, very, very important. Okay, so you got Spanish Netherlands, Habsburg Spain, all connected to the Spanish Empire relative to the Spanish colonization of Americas. Okay, of Americas, brothers and sisters. All right, that's very important. All right, very important. Also, we have, let's see, let's see where I want to go. All right, so we got the Spanish Empire, Habsburg Spain, or Habsburg Netherlands. There you go. Habsburg Netherlands. Okay, here's another one. Habsburg Netherlands. All right, so we went to Spanish Empire, Spanish Netherlands, Habsburg Spain. Now we're in Habsburg Netherlands to show that the Dutch were also connected to the Spanish. Okay, because Netherlands is the Dutch. Okay, the Netherlands is the Dutch, and don't forget the original map. The only people here is Spanish, French, and the British. Okay, according to the map showing before the North America got here, before the colonies even got here, the only players in the game was the British. And, you know, the British got their start from the House of Tudors when this damn confusion started as a result of the 100-Year War, okay, between Kingdom of France and England, which was a conflict between the Capetine dynasty and the Plantagenet dynasty, all bearing that same damn flag, that cross with that white flag with that cross in the middle, okay? So the Habsburg Netherlands, all connected members of the same family, okay, under the Spanish Empire, right? How we know it? Just look. Watch the connection your king make. Watch the connection I make. History. Upon the death of Mary of Burgundy in 1482, her substantial possessions, including the Burgundian Netherlands, so that means Burgundian Netherlands, passed to her son Philip of Handsome, who was from the house of what? Netherlands, okay? House of Netherlands, okay? Who married a Roman Catholic Castilian called Joanne of Castilia, which was the daughter of Isabel of Castile and Ferdinand III. Do you see that? Habsburg Netherlands. So Philip the Handsome is married to Joanne of Castile, the daughter of Isabella of Castile, the wife of Ferdinand II of Aragon, which were all part of the Spanish conquest of what we call the Americas, all part of the Spanish Empire, which was composed of French and Spanish Roman Catholic. Okay? How we know that? Because it all started with who? Henry VIII. It all started with Henry VIII, brothers and sisters, the House of Tudors. Henry VIII was married to Catherine of Aragon, and Catherine of Aragon was the daughter of who? Isabella of Castile. Henry VIII married Catherine of Aragon, the daughter of Isabella of Castile, the Roman Catholic monarch, who started the Spanish conquest on the estate that belonged to the descendants of the Plantagenet descendants, which is the Yorks and the Lancasters, when we were warned against our damn self in the ignorance of our identity. Okay? Which is preserved in the statute, it's preserved in presidents, it's preserved in the Constitution. Okay? I'm going to show you. All right? Henry VIII of the House of Tudors who gave King James his start, okay, was married to Catherine of Aragon. I want to see that. Who is Catherine of Aragon? Let's look. She's from the house of Trans-Zamora. Father Isabella of Aragon and mother Isabella of Castile. You can't get no better than that. The plot thickens, though. Okay? The plot thickens. It's not just Henry VIII married to one of Isabella Castile's compadres or descendants. All right? It's not just him. Who else is subject to this? Let's look at New Spain and New France. Okay, since we already dealt with Britain, let's go back to the map real quick. Go back to the map. All right. Spanish, French, British. When you say British, you're not talking about King James and them Scottish kings. We're talking about the ancient Britons, all right, which the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica said they were Berbers. Well, you want to call them Celts, Gauls, what else they said? Iberians, Berbers, Libyans. They were, in fact, the same building because the monument goes back to Stone Age, okay? All right, the same mines we built in Africa, the same mines we built over in Great Britain, now called Britain, called Albia or Great Britain or Albion. All right, the same thing we built over here in North America, which they destroyed. All right, all of a sudden now the Spanish kings are no longer building castles. All right, they got castles all out Spain, Iberia, England, etc. But the shit stops when they come over here. Come on, stop playing games. All right. So once again, Spanish, French, British are the only players in the game, and we are composed of all of them. Okay, by way of marriage, we have to go back before the Spanish conquest, which was the Roman Catholic influence on these inhabitants in what we call England. Okay, because this was England before it became Spain. This was England before it became France. Why? Because they married into the English history. Okay, we must understand that. Let's get to it. New Spain. Let's look at it. New Spain. New Spain. Originally, the Kingdom of New Spain was originally integral territory entity of the Spanish Empire established by the Habsburgs of Spain. We know the Habsburgs descended down were second to the House of Trans-Zamora, which were all members of the Spanish Empire. So New Spain was established by Habsburg, a member of the Spanish Empire under Queen Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand II of Aragon, which were all took part in what the Spanish conquest in the Americas, not Iberia, not Britain, but the Americas. Okay, all right. That's very very strange because if Henry VIII was married to Catherine of Aragon, who was the daughter of Isabella of Castile, when the Spanish conquest took form here and took place in North America. At that time, England and France was warring with Spain through the Castilian Civil War and the 100-Year War, which was the War of the Roses, okay? And that's talked about in case law. It's talked about, it's in the statute, okay? Over here. Not in England, not in Ireland, not in Scotland, but right here in North America. How I know it? Let's prove it. New Spain. We already know that it was established by who? The Habsburg dynasty, right? We already know that. Under who? Charles V. Charles V, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Charles V. Charles I the Charles V of the Roman Holy Empire. Okay, very, very important, brothers and sisters. New Spain was founded by Charles V. Okay, and the last was Ferdinand VII. Okay, and they are had an influence in the conquering of the territories that were under the authority of the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incas, as well as whatever came after that. Look at it. Louisiana, France, all the way up to the Declaration of Independence, okay? All the history that's predated has a lot to do with the present, okay? We just forgot about it, okay? So you must understand that New Spain was founded by who? Charles I. Now, it's very important that Charles I married who? Let's see. Who was his spouse? Let's see. Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire. Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire. Okay? This is what we're looking at. This is what we're looking at. His father was Philip the Handsome. You see that? His father was Philip the Handsome and Joanne, Queen of Castile of Aragon, the daughter of Isabella of Castile. How do we know that? We can go to the Habsburg, Netherlands, and we'll see that. Okay? Charles V, mother and father, is Philip the Handsome and Joanne, Queen of Castile. How do we know that? Let's go back to Habsburg, Netherlands, and prove it. It's right here. History of the Habsburg Netherlands. Upon the death of Mary Burgundy, her substantial possessions, including Burgundian Netherlands, passed to her son Philip the Handsome, who married Joanne Castile, the daughter of Isabella Castile. It's right there. You can't get no better than this truth that I'm bringing to you, brothers and sisters, in regards to Charles V dealing with New Spain. Did everyone catch that? Yes, Charles V of the Spanish Empire. Mother and father was Philip the Handsome and Joanne, Queen of Castile. Okay? The one who established New Spain over here when it was our control of Spain, going back to the kings of Castile, since the Spanish Empire was subject to the jurisdiction of the kings of Castile. To the second, that all into the family going. Okay? If everyone understand, please give me a thumbs up in the chat line if you're keeping up. So we just disqualified New Spain, New France, right? We just disqualify them because Charles V was married into the Roman Catholic family who influenced their Roman Catholicism on us. Okay? I just proved it. That's New Spain. Okay? Now let's deal with France or New France. I'm part so we just dealt with New France, okay? Part so Spain, New Spain. And New Spain was under, as we said, Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire. All right? And his mother and father was Philip and Joan, the daughter of Isabella of Castile. Now let's look at New France. Okay? Now let's look at New France. New France was a territory colonies by France in North America, beginning with the exploration, once again, exploration, New Age, all right, discovery, age of discovery, or the age of conquest, all right, that's what it is. Exploration of the Gulf of St. Lawrence by Jacques Cartier in 1534, and ended with the succession of New France to Great Britain and Spain with the Treaty of Paris of 1763. Do y'all hear this? The Treaty of Paris of 1763. Now, why is this important? Let's see. Francis I founded New Spain, and the last ruler of New Spain was Louis the 15th. Okay, who was all right? So Francis I was the founder of what? New France. So let's go to Francis I and see who he is. Okay, so we find out who Charles I was, or which was Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire. Okay, let's look at who Francis I who established New Spain. Because we already know who established. So we already know who established New Spain. Let's see who established New France, and this is Francis I. Okay, Francis I. All of these were aligned with the Spanish Empire under Roman Catholic influence. Okay, his spouse was Eleanor of Austria. Francis I of France, the founder of New Spain, of New France, not New Spain. Charles V is Charles I and the fifth of the Roman Holy Empire is the founder of New Spain. We're talking about the founder of New France in North America, and this goes back to Francis I. And Francis I was married to who? Eleanor of Austria, the daughter of who? Isabella of Castile. Okay? Isabella of Castile. Let's just make sure. Eleanor of Austria, also called Eleanor of Castile, was born Archduchess of Austria and Infanta of Castile from the House of Habsburg. Okay? Her father was Philip the Handsome and Joanne of Castile, the daughter of Isabella of Castile. Y'all see the connection? Do you see the connection? All these so-called founders of New Spain and New France are linked to those who came and conquered this territory was already inhabited by the original inhabitants of Spain and France, okay? Because those territories were overseas territory because it said that the Spanish Empire was subject to the jurisdiction of the Kingdom of Castile. It said it, okay? So if that's the case, how are you going to forget about the kings of Castile? Going back to Sancho II and Ferdinand III, pertain to area right here in North America. How can you? If this makes sense to everybody, please give me a thumbs up in the chat line. Okay? Please give me a thumbs up in the chat line. This is very, very important to understand that. All right? So Henry VII, Henry VIII was married to one of Isabella Castile's daughter. All right? Charles V was married to Isabella Castile's daughter. Francis I was married to Isabella Castile's daughter. All right, and all of them had a play in the Spanish colonization of North America by being part of what we call the Spanish Empire, whether you want to call it the Spanish Netherlands, or you want to call it Habsburg Spain, or you want to call it Habsburg Netherlands. No matter what you call it, they were all a part of the same Spanish Empire. Well, you must understand what's going on, okay? All right, let's bring it home. Let's bring it home. Now we know what Emre Hamad Hassan said about citizenship. All right. We know what it said. We know what it said about citizenship. So I don't want y'all to be here today and forget what it just said. You have to prove that you are in fact a member of that society and not by the color of your skin. Okay? You must prove that. Not just to them, but you're going to have to prove it to me. All right? That you are in fact a member of the Anglo-Saxon race who are dark-skinned. Okay? Because a lot of people want to say the Anglo-Saxon, but cannot prove it. Okay? And the color of your skin is not going to do it. All right? It's not going to do it. Very important. Two, since we're talking about citizenship, let's address that right now. Okay? Since Ray pointed out that to be dark-skinned Anglo-Saxons, You just can't say it by the color of your skin, but you must prove it genetically. Okay? You must prove it genetically because it was not determined in the 1790 statutory enactment of the Naturalization Act of 1790, nor the Immigration Act dealing with those who will be immigrated or naturalized through the naturalization process, nor was it established under the 14th Amendment, which exclusively spoke to emancipated children who were descendants of slaves. Okay, very important. So with that, we'll address citizenship. Okay, let's address that. United States versus Juan Kemar. Let's address that. Right? Since how do y'all say the 14th Amendment is unconstitutional? You don't know what you're talking about. It's not unconstitutional. It's only unconstitutional when you don't look at it in light of the Constitution. Okay? Very important. The holding in the case. A child born in the United States to alien parents is a citizen by way of the Immigration Act. You couldn't qualify under the Naturalization Act of 1790. You couldn't qualify under the 14th Amendment. So the only way you can qualify is under the Immigration Act. We must understand that. So we as Black people, based upon the color of our skin, wanted to qualify citizenship as being part of a nation, not based upon a civil status, but a political status. That must be looked at in light of what they said, the common law, which you see in phrase B. The phrase subject to the jurisdiction thereof should be interpreted in light of the common law. Okay? Of the common law of England. Not what they legislation that they wanted to create for newfound citizenship, but based upon what the common law said about citizenship. Okay? Very important. So let's look at it in the case law to really grasp what it's actually saying about citizenship being interpreted in light of the common law and what rights, what inheritance that those who were deemed citizens at that particular time, according to the meaning of citizenship as defined in the President under the common law of England, and who are they speaking about relative, because we know they're talking about emancipated, dark-skinned Black people, okay? But you must denote it to your genealogy, your ethnicity, okay, on the public record. We've done that, you know what I'm saying? We declare who we are. We are the English Anglo-Saxon Berbers according to statutory law, okay? Under what we call reception statute already incorporated in the state of New Jersey, being that this was the government of the crown, okay? I'm going to prove it to you. Let's see. So once again, for English Anglo-Saxon Berbers, your citizenship is not construed to the Naturalization Act of 1790, nor is it construed to a naturalization process, all right, through the N-400 form, nor is it dealt with through the immigration enactments, all right, that are now subject to scrutiny as a result of the Deportation Act, as well as the invoking of the Enemy Act by Donald Trump, okay? All these things are coming out, all right? And you have no idea how it's going to affect you. But I'm about to show you now. Let's see. The United States versus Juan Kemar. It said it must be looked at, when you hear the word subject to the jurisdiction, it should be looked at in light of the common law. I didn't say that. That was the case law said, okay? So let's see what the case law says in its entirety. Listen, the Constitution does not in any words say who it should be a natural born citizen. Resort must be had elsewhere to ascertain that. And he proceeded to resort to the common law and aid in the construction of this provision. Did you hear that? The Constitution can't save you in lieu of what you're saying you are a citizen, because nothing in the Constitution said anything about a citizen, okay? Nothing. is based upon some enactment that allowed them to create that legislation to deem you a citizen that was authorized by the Constitution. But the Constitution does no way say anything about who is a citizen. Resort must be sought elsewhere. So let's sought elsewhere for that resort. And what resort is that? The common law. Smith versus Alabama. Let's see what it says. The Constitution does not, in any words, say who should be a naturally born citizen. Resort must be held elsewhere to ascertain that end. He proceeded to resort to the common law as a aid in construction of this provision. In Smith versus Alabama, Mr. Justice Matthews delivered the judgment of the court and said, there is no common law of the United States in the sense of a national customary law distinct from the common law of England as adopted by the several states, each for itself, apply as its local law and subject to such alteration as may be provided by its own statutes. There is, however, one clear exception to the statement that there is no national common law. The interpretation of the Constitution of the United States is necessarily influenced by the fact that its provisions are framed in the language of the English common law and to be read in light of its history. You hear that? So you can't have the law without the law history. Okay? You can't have the law without the history of the law. And that goes back to our time immemorial, okay, where Parliament was established. Let's continue. 2. The fundamental principles of the common law with regards to English nationality was birthed within allegiance, also called legality, obedience, faith, or power of the king. The principle embraced all persons born within the king's allegiance is subject to its protection. Such allegiance and protection were mutual as expressed in the maximum protectio trahet subjectionem el subjectio protectionem, and were not restricted to natural born subjects and natural subjects or to those who had taken an oath of allegiance, but were predicable of aliens in ability so long as they were within the kingdom. You hear that? So long as you were in the kingdom. What kingdom? This kingdom right here. Okay, this is the United States presidents establishing citizenship here in North America in the Kingdom of England in light of the jurisdiction that is governed by the common law. Children born in England of such aliens were then therefore natural born subjects, but the children born within the realm of foreign ambassadors, you better pay attention, or the children of alien enemies born during within their hostile occupation of part of the kingdom dominion were not natural born subjects because not born within the allegiance, the obedience, or the power, or as would be said at this day, within the jurisdiction of the king. You wouldn't be born in the jurisdiction of the king. I didn't say that. Case law is saying this. This fundamental principle with these qualifications or explanation of it was clearly thought quantly, stating in the leading case known as Calvin's case. You need to refresh yourself with that case, Calvin's case. Let me go a little bit further. All right, let's go down to 668. Right, we just talked about citizenship. All right, in regards to heirs paying their allegiance to the king, whether you are national or you're a foreign national, you have to show your allegiance. Okay, this is an 1898 case governing the status of foreigners as well as nationals. Okay, very, very important, as well as the governing their right to their Fourth Amendment, which is their right to property. Okay, unlawful search, seizures, etc. Okay, this is the Fourth Amendment right protected under the 14th Amendment right. Okay, without that 14th Amendment, you don't have any Fourth Amendment right. Okay, that means your property can't be protected because you are still considered what? Everyone say it, property. There is therefore little grounds for the theory that at the time of the adoption of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, that there as in any settled and definite rule of international law generally recognized by a civilized nation, inconsistent with the ancient rule of civilized by birth within the dominion. Once again, I repeat, there is therefore little grounds for the theory. So it's not a theory. At the time of the adoption of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, there as any settled indefinite rule of international law generally recognized by civilized nations, inconsistent with the ancient rule of civilized citizenship by birth within the dominion. Okay, so every law qualifies that being born within the king's dominion, you are in fact a king's subject. Let's continue. Nor can it be doubted that it is in the inherent right of every independent nation to determine for itself, in accordance to its own constitutional law, what class of persons should be entitled to its citizenship. All right? Both in England and in the United States, indeed, statutes have been passed at various times enacting that certain issues born abroad of English subjects or American citizens, respectively, should inherit to some extent at least the rights of their parent. But those statutes apply only to cases coming within their purport. So if you don't raise the issue, it will go unnoticed. And they have never been considered in either country as affecting the citizenship of persons born within its dominion. Okay, so if you got a claim, you must bring your claim as your right to not to citizenship, but as well to right to your protection of your property as a citizen. All right, because citizen, if you're not a citizen, you can't own property. All right, very important. Now they're talking about statutes passed in England and America. All right, I didn't say that. It's what the case said. It says both in England and the United States, indeed, statutes. It didn't say case law now. It's talking about statutes. Statutes, both in England and the United States, indeed, statutes have been passed at various times enacted that certain issues born abroad of English subjects or of American citizens, respectively, should inherit to some extent at least the rights of their parents. Both those statutes apply only to cases coming within their purport, and they have never been considered in either country as affecting the citizenship of persons born within its dominion. The earliest statute, brothers and sisters, was passed in the reign of who? Edward III. You hear that? In the reign of Edward III. So they're talking about the earliest statute passed in the reign of Edward III, establishing citizenship here in America, okay? Was passed by Edward III, okay? In 1343. This is a time of what we call the 100-Year Wars. The 100-Year Wars, the Castilian Civil War. All these wars are going on at this particular time. The War of the Roses. All this is going on at the same time. This is the reason why we have no estate, because the heirs are considered dead, interstate. All right? They think that all of you, all the English heirs is gone. Okay, but I prove that you're not. Okay, United States one Kim Ark prove that you're not. Because if you weren't heirs and there weren't heirs here, why would they keep reciting this case law? Okay, and not just the case law, statutory law. I mean, the presidents. They also got it in statutory law. We got case law talking about statutory law in regards to citizenship in New Jersey, as well as the right to inherit property as a result of that citizenship, going back to who? Edward III, the son of Edward II, the son of Edward I, the son of Henry III, the son of John, the son of Henry II, the son of Godfrey the fifth kind of man Jew, the son of Folk, the ruler of Jerusalem. Okay? Let's see. It said before this time, so they gave you a date. 1343, 1343, Edward III. The earliest statute was passed in the reign of Edward III and arose of Parliament in Parliament of 17th of Edward III, 1343. It stated that before the time there has been great doubt and difficulty amongst the lords of this realm. Before this time, there had been great doubt and difficulty amongst the lords of this realm and the commons, as well men of the laws as others, whether children who are born in part beyond the sea ought to bear inheritance after the death of their ancestors in England, because no certain laws had been thereon ordained. Okay? So they're talking about children being able to have an inheritance from their parents who have died, whether they were over here or whether they were over in England. And that can only be determined by your surname, brothers and sisters, your hereditary surname. Okay? And by the kings and lords in commons, it was unanimously agreed that there was no manner of doubt that the children of our Lord, the King, all right, whether they were born on this side of the sea or beyond the sea, should bear the inheritance of their ancestors. And in regard to other children, it was agreed in this parliament that they should also inherit wherever they might be born in the service of the king. Okay? But because Parliament was about to depart, and the Benders demanded great advisement and good deliberation how it should be best to most surely done, the making of a statute was put off to the next Parliament, the second Rot Paul 139, by reason apparently of the prevalence of the plague. They talk about the Black Plague in England. No act upon the subject was passed until the 5th of Edward III in 1350, when Parliament passed an act entitled A Statute for Those Who Are Born in Parts Beyond the Sea, by which, after reciting that some people be in doubt if the children born in the parts beyond the sea ought to, out of lieges of England, should be able to demand any inheritance within the same lieges or not, whereof a petition was put into Parliament. That means a petition of right. In Parliament of Edward III, and as not at the same time wholly assented. It was first agreed and affirmed that the law of the Crown of England is and always has been such that the children of the kings of England, in whatever part they were born in England or elsewhere, be able to also bear the inheritance after the death of their ancestors. It was also agreed that certain persons named, which were born beyond the sea, out of the lieges of England, should be from henceforth able to have and enjoy their inheritance after the death of their ancestors in parts within the lieges of England, as well as those that should be born with the same lieges. So here you see in 1343 and 1350 that there were laws passed by Edward III that the inheritance of heirs whose parents died through the time of the 100-Year Wars, through the time of the War of the Roses, through the time of the Second 100-Year War, through the time of the English Civil Wars, the Glorious Revolution, etc., through the time of their wars, once we came to the announcement of who we were able to be able to bear the inheritance that was left, preserved in statutory law, as the case law just said, in regards to our right as a citizen to be able to inherit property that's protected by the Fourth Amendment through the 14th Amendment, which governs our right as citizens governed under the subject matter, governed under the common law of England, as United States versus Juan Kimar has stated on his face. Okay? Very, very, very important. So 1343 and 1350, there were enactments passed by Edward III for us to be able to inherit lands as a result of our birthright, and these dominions from across seas. This is what we call reparable rights and littoral rights. Once again, this is called littoral rights and reparable rights. Okay, the difference between the reparable rights and littoral rights is reparable rights is between a small body of water, and littoral rights is between a large body of water. Okay, this is what we call it's called the King's Radical Title, which is a right of possession under the King's Jury Regalia over overseas possessions, which we call Crown land. Once again, Crown land. So we see United States versus Juan Kim Ark clearly points out that the heirs or the descendants of the Plantagenet King Edward III, as a result of what took place through the 100-Year War, the Castilian Civil War, and all the wars that came down after that, once we forgot our identity as a result of the conflicts that originated as a result of the 100-Year War and the Castilian Civil War, which was a conflict that involved England, France, and Spain as a result of the Roman Catholic influence that was created through Henry VII's marriage to Catherine of Aragon, who was the daughter of Isabella of Castile in 1491, which distributed all the Berbice tribes that were originally here and then sold off into slavery. Okay? We must understand that the key is here, because the laws governing our state is right here in statutes. A lot of you newcomers don't know that, so let me just show you that it's in fact preserved in statutory law. Let's show you. In closing, greeting Archbishop Belmont from the House of Belmont. Glad you was able to join us. New Jersey Revised Statute Title 46, Alienation of Freehold, Statute Queen Pretorius Terrarum. This is a statute governing His King's Majesty laws on the buying and the selling or the conveyance of property. Okay. This is the New Jersey Revised Statute 46-3-5, 2024. Okay. 2024. From and after March 18th, 1795, any freeholder may give, sell, or alienate the real estate whereof he is, or at any time shall be seized in fee simple, or any part thereof at his pleasure, and such donee, purchaser, or alienee shall hold the same free in tenure or service to the donor, seller, or aliener. This statute was passed by Edward I in 1295. 1295, the statute was passed by Edward I of the Plantagenet Crown. So what the hell is this doing here in the New Jersey Revised Statute? I'm going to show you. We have another one. A 1285 statute, the statute of the donors condition of bus, which means the statute of entail. Entail estates are estates that cannot be sold off because they are reserved for heirs such as you. Okay? 46-3-5, estate entails are abolished. That means that New Jersey stole your inheritance, and I am the only one that can get it back. Okay? It says, whenever any transfer, conveyance, disbursement, distribution of any will or instrument in writing shall hereafter be made, whereby any grantee, the advisory or other person shall become seized in law or in equity of such an estate in any real estate as under the statutes of Edward I, called the Statutes of Entail. This was passed in 1285, along with Queen Pretorius and his companion Quo Warranto, which means or order to show cause, which can be used to dissolve corporations, would have been held in a state in fee tail of any type of character. Such conveyance will or instruments shall vest in the state in fee simple and such grantee, advisory, or other person. So this statute was passed by Edward I, along with his companion Queen Pretorius, which was passed in 1285 and 1290. Okay, in the 13th century, and they're still here in New Jersey. Okay, we must understand how important this lesson is. All right, why do I say this? Let's see. Let's go here. In closing, His Majesty's Council. His Majesty's Council for the Province of New Jersey was the upper house of New Jersey legislature under the colonial rule until it was replaced by New Jersey Legislative Council under the New Jersey Constitution of 1776. As you can see, the authority was the crown and the length was indefinite. We understand that in 1603, the kingdoms of England, Ireland, and Scotland were separate kingdoms, and that meant that the crown of England and the crown of Scotland and the crown of England, under whatever authority they had, remained under that authority until they were unified in 1707. So if the crown of England is sitting right here in New Jersey in 1702, because they didn't become unified till 1707, and it was under the authority of a Scottish queen, Queen Anne. She was a Scottish queen. She wasn't an English queen, okay? It says the length of term of the crown was indefinite. So it meant the crown was operating going back to time immemorial, all the way through those wars that we just got finished talking about, sitting right here in England, okay? All the way up to 1492 through the Spanish conquest with the invasion of the Roman Catholic influence of the Spanish, French, and English houses going back to the unification through the Kings of Castile. No, going back to the 100-Year War and the Castilian Civil War, okay? Very important for you to understand that. So we see that the authority of the crown of England, because they were separate at this time, was indefinite, which means that it always existed, okay? It always existed. How do we know that? Let's go to another court case to qualify it. Lotham versus Lotham, a 1958 case from New Jersey Superior Court Appellate Division. Okay? A New Jersey Appellate Court Division, 1958. Look what it says. That the common law of England prevailed in the colony of New Jersey is not open to question. The settlers of the state brought with them the common law of England and such of its statutes as were of general application, and we just read the statutes, okay? In New Jersey, 2024, they're still here. On April 15, 1702, the proprietors of East and West Jersey made a full and unconditional surrender of the right of self-governing meant to Queen Anne, the Queen of England, and accepted surrender of the appointed Lord Viscount Cornbury as governor of the combined province. Under the new system of government, the citizens of New Jersey claimed the protection in of and were subject to the same laws as any other British subject, i.e., the common law of England, and the statutes of England which were of general application. You hear that? The colonial government could, under its charter, enact laws or ordinances to govern its inhabitants, subject to the approval of the crown, insofar as those laws did not abrogate the English law. Did you hear what that just said, y'all? Did you hear what they just saw? That just said. Now we understand that the English monarch was overthrown when they unified England with Scotland in 1707. We know that before they became world colonies, New Jersey was under the Dutch. And we just went through the three Dutches: Habsburg, Netherlands, what was they called? What were they called? Spanish Empire, which is composed of the Spanish Netherlands, which is composed of the Habsburg Spain, as well as the Habsburg Netherlands, which all has that white flag with that red cross on it with the ridges in it, okay? And they all encompasses Roman Catholic houses of French and Spanish monarchs, okay? This is very important for you to understand that, because they just said that they enacted statutory law from the British government that was supposed to be in line with the English law under the English common law of England. I didn't say that. That's what they just said. Okay? Very, very important. So before we close out, let's look at New Jersey before it was overthrown, going back to the Spanish and Dutch, i.e., Spanish and Netherlands. No matter what you call them, under what name, they were all part of the Spanish Empire. Spanish Empire. As a result of that, they overthrew the crown. Okay, it did not get restored till 1702 by the same ones who overthrew it. Okay, and that are those who were the Dutch, because Queen Anne succeeded William III, and William III was King of England. He was called William of Orange, which he was descended down from the Dutch Republic. Okay, from the Dutch Republic. This is where New Netherland get their name from. New Netherland. Okay, let's look at that before I close out. New Netherland. New Netherland. New Netherland was a 17th century colonial province of the Dutch Republic located in east coast of what is now United States. The claimed territories extended from the Delmarva Peninsula to Cape Cod. Settlements were established at what became now known as the state of New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Connecticut, with small outposts through Pennsylvania and Rhode Island. So prior to this New Netherland, you have to go back into what they call the Anglo and Dutch Wars. Once again, the Anglo and Dutch War, because under the restoration of the crown under Charles II, this was due to the English Revolutionary War. The English Revolutionary War goes from Charles I to Charles II with the restoration of the crown when surrender of Fort Amsterdam. Okay, this was a part of what we call New Netherland, and New Netherland was part of New Dutch, what they call the Dutch Republic, and the Dutch Republic goes back into what they call William the Silent. Okay, William the Silent. We must understand right here, Dutch Republic. William the Silent. All right. where your president, I mean, where your king, what's his name? King George, Prince, what's his name? King William III, right here, Prince of Orange, right here. He was the predecessor for Queen Anne. Okay, so you must know your history, brothers and sisters, in order to put this puzzle together. All right. So with that, let's go back to that case law before I close out. Longham versus Longham. So it says right here, Lord Viscount Cornbury, as governor of the combined provinces, under a new system of government, the system New Jersey claims the protection of and were subject to the same laws as any other British subject, i.e., the common law of England and the statutes of England, which were of general application. The colonial government could, under its charter, enact laws or ordinances to govern its inhabitants, subject to the approval of the crown, and so far as those laws did not abrogate the English law. The provision must have been designed to ensure the crown that the laws of England having general application will be uniform throughout the empire. Did you hear that? It didn't say the British Empire. It didn't say the Scottish Empire. It didn't say the Irish Scotland Empire. It said the English Empire. Okay. Colonial power to legislate was limited by charter provisions to the enactment of laws which were deemed peculiarly essential to the local conditions. Those legislators were not empowered to change the laws of England, save by special approval of the crown. Thus, since 1702, the common law of England and those statutes which were general in nature were applicable in New Jersey. Did y'all hear that? Were applicable in New Jersey. And New Jersey is, in fact, the crown. Okay? How we know it? Let's prove it in closure. This is the article from New Jersey Land Title Institute, which ensures cloudy titles. And we know cloudy titles is an effective title in what we call real estate, known as fee simple estates, contrasting Intel. Okay? I'll just read this and close out. Historical background. The historical background in feudalism. It said because New Jersey was formerly of colony of the Crown of England, we just read that it was called His Majesty's Council in 1702. So this is the Land Title Institute, which is a company that insures deeds. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's a real estate deed, tax deed, a sheriff deed, I don't give a damn what type of deed is defective because it's cloudy. How we know it? It didn't come from me. It didn't come from the crown. It didn't come from the monarch, and they know it's supposed to. How you know it? They're going to say it. Historical background in feudalism, because New Jersey was formerly a colony of the Crown of England. The history of development of our entire legal system, including our system of land ownership, has its roots in England. For our purpose, though, this is talk about New Jersey. Now, we just said New Jersey was formerly a colony of the Crown back in 1702. I just showed you the statutory law that they abolished the authority of the crown under the crown when it was in authority back in 1702, right? When they locked up William Franklin, the last world governor, okay, and put in William Patterson, okay? It said because New Jersey was formerly a colony of the Crown of England, the history of development of our entire legal system, including our system of land ownership, has its roots in England. But for their purpose, the development of how they of land ownership began was with the successful invasion of England by the Normans in 1066 under the leadership of William the Conqueror. So New Jersey is admitting through a corporation that was incorporated in New Jersey, which is seated way the hell out in Ohio, all right, to ensure the effective titles of real estate based upon the process of lottery of seasons, okay? And the process in which they adopted for their purposes goes back to the successful invasion of William the Conqueror, a Frankish king. So if there was no successful invasion of England, i.e. North America, then there will be no invasion of England, and we will be the original inhabitants here, because New Jersey said that their successful invasion of England with William the Conqueror is how they inquired their purpose and intent of the development of land ownership. They just said that out of their own mouth. It said William the First, i.e. William the Conqueror, introduced the feudal system in England. Feudalism is based upon the concept that all land is held, whether immediately or immediately, by the sovereign. In other words, all land is owned by the king, and all others having a estate or interest in land ultimately derive their interest from the king. There you have it, brothers and sisters. You can't get no better than that. Okay, I just showed you that New Jersey banished the laws of the English kings that were received the English crown as a result of what occurred by William the Conqueror. Okay, because once again, I'm gonna say it in closing. Margaret of Scotland married Malcolm III of Scotland. Margaret of Scotland, who married Malcolm III of Scotland, was called Margaret of Wessex. Margaret of Wessex and Margaret of Malcolm III had a daughter called Matilda of Scotland. Matilda of Scotland had a daughter with Henry I called Empress Matilda, who married Godfrey's son, who married Fulk V's son, Godfrey V, kind of man Jew, who was the father of Henry II, who gave birth to John, Henry II, and Henry III. Okay, parts up. Who gave birth to John, Henry II, and Henry III. And we know Richard I is the son of John. Okay, and they gave birth to the Plantagenet cadet branches, i.e., the York and Lancaster, to Edward I, Edward II, and Edward III. And as a result of that, we get into the War of the Roses, the 100-Year Wars, which started the Castilian Civil Wars, which started the conflict that started on all three continents. Okay, so there you have it, brothers and sisters. There in a nutshell. All right, honor your king, honor your history, honor your forefathers. All right, this is all you need to do to restore you to your estate. Okay, it's your inheritance. Okay, I'm not gonna give it to you if you don't want it. Okay, I'm not gonna give it to you if you do not want it. All right. So with that, are there any questions on the floor in regards to today's lessons? If not, forever hold your peace. Are there any questions? Come on with it. Any questions from the newcomers? Any questions from the newcomers? Did you enjoy today's lessons? If you did, give me a thumbs up in the chat line. If you enjoyed today's lesson, please give me a thumbs up in the chat line before I log out. Please like, share, subscribe. Right? Anybody who knows any channels out there that would like to do a podcast with me, please let them know. We're open for discussion. So since there are no more questions out there, I just want to let you brothers and sisters know that the truth is here. All you have to do is accept it. Okay? The truth is here. Is all you have to do is accept it, and it comes under this family crest. Right here. Thank you, Brother Noble Harris. Thank you. You have to fall under this banner. Right here, the Plantagenet crown. The door swings one way, in or out. All right, in or out. You're either leaving or you're coming in. So with that, I'm going to greet you as I always greeted you. That's in peace and love, as well as like, share, subscribe. Contact Archbishop Belmont from the House of Belmont or Council Searchy for inquiry, as well as make sure you go to the website and check out the information there. There's none like this on the planet. All right. I hope that you all take heed to what's been said, because if you don't, there's no excuse. All right. And with that, I say